You're very welcome back. Now, all morning, Derek has been chasing the ghosts.
Little ghosty.
Not these ghosts. The ghosts of Ireland's past.
Yes, he's been visiting the nation's historical heroes in Glasnevin Cemetery Museum.
You're like something from Pac-Man, just going hum. Derek, how are you doing in Glasnevin?
Yes, good morning, guys. Welcome down here to the dead centre of Dublin, literally, I suppose, here this morning. Glasnevin Cemetery is where we're at here. We're taking on a tour of the cemetery itself and, of course, the museum. Daniel Carey, he is a local tour guide here. Good morning to you, Daniel. And Daniel, I love what the front of your brochure here says, because it says every plot has a story, and it does really, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, thank you, Derek. Yeah, I suppose every plot has a story is our tagline, because while you come to visit the cemetery here, it's 124 acres in size, over 1.5 million burials. Many would come to see some of the famous figures here, but indeed every other plot does have a story to tell as well, with about 1.5 million members of the community in the cemetery now too.
And this graveyard opened 190 years ago, 1832.
Yeah, so 1832, the cemetery was established by Daniel O'Connell, who takes up the most prominent spot here now today. It was opened as the first non-denominational cemetery in the country, and very much sticking with that ethos today, as we are still an active site as well.
Now, take us on a tour of the cemetery stuff. We kick off with that beautiful round tower. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the round tower is the first thing you see when you come into the cemetery itself. Stands as a headstone to Daniel O'Connell, 55 metres tall, so it's the tallest round tower in the country. Although it's a bit newer than some of the others, but it is still an impressive monument all the same.
Then we move on to the gravestone, and it is a small marking, Countess Markievicz.
Yeah, so the Countess is buried in the Republican plot. She would have played a key figure in the Irish Revolution, particularly in 1916. Markievicz was a commander of the Citizen Army down in St Stephen's Green, and she was imprisoned in the rebellion's aftermath. Of course, she would continue on her revolutionary career in the aftermath of the Rising, but she'd be most remembered for her time in 1916.
Eamon de Valera then, and it's a very in terms of gravestone, there's not much fuss, there's not much hype about it.
No, again, for a man whose life spans pretty much all the 20th century, involved in politics as well as the revolution. You know, I mean, Taoiseach, president, as well as revolutionary from 1916 to 23. A very simple headstone. Family owned. The first burial in there was his son Brian in 1936, and he was only 20 years of age when he was killed in a horse riding accident. That headstone is for him. It's good enough for the rest of them now as well.
Now we move on from there and we move underground to Daniel O'Connell's tomb itself and that beautiful ornate crypt.
Yeah, so as the founder of the cemetery, as well as being the great liberator of the 19th century, O'Connell occupies the crypt right in the centre of the cemetery as you come in the front gate. Beautifully ornate on the inside in that kind of Celtic romantic style. Much of it is inspired, say, the likes of the Book of Kells would be quite similar as well. And of course the sarcophagus topped with that beautiful slab of Kilkenny black marble there as well. It is very, very ornate.
And do you have many visitors coming down here now across the year?
Plenty of visitors, so thousands of people coming every year as part of our tours in to see the crypt of O'Connell. It's also said to be very good luck to reach in and touch the top of the wooden coffin that he's in, and so plenty of people coming along to do that alone.
Now we move from there on to Kitty Kiernan's grave, and Kitty was the fiancée, in fact, of Michael Collins.
Yeah, so Kitty and Michael met in Granard in Longford, which is where Kitty was from, and they were engaged to be married in October 1921. By the end of the War of Independence, this was a time that Michael was going over to London to negotiate that Anglo-Irish treaty, and they engaged to be married. However, he is killed just before the wedding takes place. He's killed in August 1922. The wedding was supposed to be 2 months later. Kitty goes on to marry, and when she died in 1945, she wanted to be buried next to Michael, and so she is here in the cemetery today.
7 graves.
Just 7 graves away.
Yeah, there we go. And then we'll finish off with Michael Collins' grave itself. I suppose a lot of people do come here to pay their respects, lay flowers, lay coins.
Yeah, if you look at the grave itself, always adorned with flowers every day. Visitors from all across the world. It is the most visited grave in the cemetery, if not the whole country, I would say. You know, particularly remembered for his time in the War of Independence and at the very beginning of the Civil War. Of course, he was killed only a few weeks in August 1922 in Ballinablaw, and he was buried here. Now, this year marks 100 years since the end of the Civil War itself. So, of course, this is a topic that many of us would be familiar with over the last couple of years. But Collins has always been a well-visited figure.
We'll finish off with the museum here itself. It's a great experience. We're talking about waking the dead, death and design, extraordinary lives as well. It's incredible.
Yeah, so upstairs here in the visitor centre is the Extraordinary Lives exhibition. And it goes back to what you said at the beginning, that every plot has a story. So famous figures, yes, but the Extraordinary Lives ties in many of the other stories of those buried here that are no less interesting than those that you would come to see on a regular basis.
Of course, tours kicking off into the midterm break too.
Yeah, so we run our tours on a regular basis. And now coming up to midterm, we have kind of family-orientated children's tours, the midterm tales. So run plenty of tours all throughout the year.
Where can we find out more online?
You find out more on our website at dctrust.ie, and you'll see Experience Glasnevin is the name of the visitor experience here, as well as on Instagram, Facebook, places like that.
You're alive and kicking, pardon the pun. By the way, Tommy, we're back at base. How old are you?
I'm 22 now.
You're 22. When did you start working here?
I started here back in 2016.
So you were 14?
Yeah, 14, 15 when I started. Yeah, I was here on a work experience programme, and
you haven't left since.
Haven't managed to get rid of me just yet. No.
All right, thank you so much for joining us here this morning.
Thanks,
Check them out online on the socials as well. But for me and Daniel, back to you in the studio.
He's so
good.
good.
Just remarkable how good he was.
Yeah, he works. Amazing.
He knows them all personally. He's there since 14. Now, lots more to come in R&D, and we're going to see you back here in a few minutes.